Hello there and welcome to World News Midnight Edition on All 24 News with me, Karim Zachary. These are today's top stories. The bilateral agreement on the creation of an Algerian-Nigerian Business Council was signed on Saturday in Algiers, following a meeting between Algerian Foreign Minister and his Nigerian counterpart. Many Palestinians are still waiting for the funeral of their loved ones as Zionists still detain dead bodies. Today in Egypt, the 27th UN's Global Climate Conference kicks off with many expectations to find solutions to the climatic disasters. And also in our news, Iran officially acknowledged for the first time that it had provided Moscow with drones. First in our news, Algerian Foreign Minister Mr. Mtala Mamra received on Saturday his Nigerian counterpart, Geoffrey Onyema, who is on a working visit to Algeria. The two parties discussed the strategic relations linking Algeria and Nigeria and the prospects for strengthening them in various fields. A unified vision was also emphasized on the need to enable Africa to implement its strategic vision with regard to peace, security, and development, and to strengthen its unity in order to face the current challenges.
This morning, we reviewed the bilateral relations between the two brotherly countries. We learned about the positive developments that took place in our relations. At the same time, we were briefed on a number of large projects that must be achieved to raise the level of the Algerian-Nigerian partnership to the level of the two countries' capabilities.
For years, Nigeria and Algeria have had very close relations, especially at the political level, and we would like the two countries' economy and trade also go the same level as our political relationship, so we're going to put a lot of action on that.
Many Palestinians are still waiting for the funeral of their loved ones and their martyrs as the Zionist forces still use unjust policy of detaining dead bodies of Palestinians. It seems that the Palestinian martyrs terrify Zionist occupiers even after the death. Usama Ayadi has the report.
Those who escaped detention during their life in the occupied Palestinian lands may not escape it after their death, as if the martyrs of Al-Quds, Nablus, Jenin, and other Palestinian cities terrify the Zionist entity even from inside mortuary. Here is the village of Atur, east of occupied Al-Quds. Hundreds of Palestinians are demonstrating not for the arrest of a young man, nor for the Zionist raids on their houses. Rather, the demonstration is to demand the return of the body of the martyr Muhammad Abu Jum'a, who has been detained since last September, even after his death.
My son is a martyr, Yasser al-Shawqi. He was martyred in 2019 and he's employed in the court in Al-Khalil as a bailiff at 1 p.m. on Tuesday, 12th of March 2019. At the time when he was doing his job, he was shot by Zionist forces for no reason, for no crime. His death was really painful for us, but what makes me really sad and sorrow is detaining him in the mortuary. I'm waiting at any second, day and night, just to be notified of receiving his body and to bury him in the martyr graveyard.
In occupied Palestine, the death penalty is not enough to cure the pride of the Zionist occupation. After the killing and abuse, Zionist soldiers hold the bodies of the martyrs forcibly and unjustly. This has never been explained by the occupier, but rather it makes the sorrow of their families double. Latest reports counted more than 100 bodies of Palestinian martyrs being held by the entity, including the bodies of 9 prisoners, in addition to 256 in the number graves.
I've been waiting for his body for 14 years. Dead or alive, I want his body. It's a very painful feeling, but we want to have his dead body.
The policy of detention and abuse of the bodies that affected many martyrs necessitated sounding the alarm, especially after observers of the situation confirmed that the occupation extracts the organs of the martyrs in order to help the wounded occupation soldiers. a crime against humanity that proves the brutality and intransigence of the Zionist occupation, despite the cries of the families of the martyrs and human rights organizations to expose the crimes of the entity and to internationalize the issue on the widest scale, to protect the right of burial for the martyrs and the right to the last look for their families.
The latest report issued by World Bank indicated that the Moroccan economy is heading towards danger due to climate changes and droughts that have devastated the performance of the agricultural sector in the country. The financial authority itself asked the kingdom to activate immediate strategies to remedy the situation with red indicators. The Mauritanian government condemned the killing of 3 of its citizens in an area of Western Sahara as a result of aerial bombardment by a drone, without mentioning who carried out the attack. The Minister of Equipment and Transport, the official spokesperson for the Mauritanian government, Nani Wald Ashruga, said in a press conference that the government is completely discontented after the killing of 2 Mauritanian miners on the northern border of the country, as he described the incident painful, without providing further explanations. The Tunisian government signed a loan agreement with the Arab Monetary Fund with value of $74 million. This agreement came to support reforms, public finances in the country, and correction program, and the reduction in the balance of payments deficit, indicating that the period of its repayment will be after 5 years, after a grace period of 36 months. Also in our news, more than 1 million people participated in a protest in Bamako following a video broadcast containing abusive statements and acts against the Quran, Islam, and the Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him. The demonstration, led by the Islamic High Council of Mali, the country's main Islamic organization.
Let the authorities know that Muslims have always advocated calm for the country and for themselves. Then it is time for them to respect Muslims.
We will die for our religion. We trust the High Islamic Council, but the current authorities in the country must pass a law that protects Muslims, that guarantees our religion and our books.
Over 1,000 of protesters marched through downtown Accra on Saturday, calling for the resignation of Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo amid an economic crisis that has hammered the cedi currency and seen fuel and food costs spiral to record levels. Filing past police in riot gear, the red-clad crowd waved placards and chanted, "Akufo-Addo must go," and IMF, no, a reference to the government's ongoing talks with the International Monetary Fund for billions of dollars to prop up the economy.
He has failed, and we are asking him to resign. High fuel price increment is killing the people of Ghana, and we are asking him to resign. If Akufo-Addo, who is the president of this republic, has a single respect for himself, he should respect the constitution of the land and respect the voices of the people, because the people owns the power, and we are calling him to step down and save himself some respect.
COP27, UN's Global Climate Conference, is going to be held in Egypt for 2 weeks starting on November 6th. Final preparations are being made in Sharm el-Sheikh for the launch of this gathering. Expectations and some concerns are high within the climate community. Zara Farjani reports.
Participants arrive at the Sharm el-Sheikh International Convention Center, where organizers are making final preparations for the launch of the annual UN Climate Conference to be held this November in Egypt. For 2 weeks, world leaders, diplomats, campaigners and scientists from all around the world will meet for COP27 to discuss and find solutions to the climatic disaster of our planet that's on the path to catastrophic warming. Each year there are high hopes for the 2-week United Nations climate gathering. This year, scientists are more concerned about global warming than 3 decades ago due to the increasing pace of warming.
We see very limited progress We have a geopolitically very challenging situation in the world with the Ukraine war, with the economy moving into recession, inflation levels rising, trust levels being at a very low level. And as we know, climate action requires trust and collaboration among all countries in the world.
Threat posed by climate change is real, as youth protests have gripped the world in recent weeks. Yet, some Middle East activists are boosting their hopes before Egypt's climate gathering.
I hope that through COP, governments will be more involved, also the private and oil sectors. The responsibility falls on us activists as well to spread awareness amongst the people who are regular people like us.
For 6 years, African lands did not witness the climate gathering. COP27, to be held in Egypt this year, has great significance. For the continent is in need of such attention, given how heavily it is affected by rising temperatures.
Still with the environment, but now to Amsterdam. Hundreds of environmental activists from Greenpeace and Extinction Rebellion block private jets on the tarmac at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam. Demonstrators are protesting for the airport to decrease air traffic and limit private flights to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Back of me, you see activists from Greenpeace and Extinction Rebellion together, hundreds of them, holding down private jets, because if we need to start cutting down emissions, which means flying less, we need to tackle the ones that we absolutely don't need, the most unnecessary ones, which are short distance flights.
According to pro-Moscow separatist authorities in Donetsk, Russian forces had advanced successfully north of Donetsk and Mayorsk, while other fierce battles took place in the province of Kherson, where Kiev launched a counterattack to recapture it. Islam said.
It could be the fiercest urban warfare in anticipation of Ukrainian advances. This is how the situation appeared in Kherson. Russian forces urge civilians to leave Kherson as Ukrainian military is preparing for resolute fighting against Russian forces in order to recapture the city.
Currently, pontoon transport units evacuate civilians from the city of Kherson and the territory of the right bank of Dnipro River of the Kherson Oblast. About 1,200 vehicles and 5,000 civilians are transported every day.
Another battle in Bakhmut continued as Moscow is nearing to control. But according to deputy head of the city's civil administration, Ukrainian troops are firmly holding the front line.
The fiercest military action during all this week was concentrated on the Donbass, that is Bakhmut and Solidar. We are holding our positions in these and few other areas in Donetsk region.
Western support for Kiev continues following expectations of the massive Ukrainian attack and fears over nuclear conflict. The US pledged a further $400 million in military assistance to Ukraine, and the G7 foreign ministers reiterated their appeal for Moscow to put an end to the war by cautioning that any use of nuclear weapons would have serious consequences.
It is not allowed. It is unjustifiable to use nuclear weapons in this conflict. We call on Russia. I say clearly not to do so. It would be a line not to cross.
In the northern borders with Belarus and Russia, Ukrainian border guards are strengthening their positions in anticipation of any attacks from northern frontiers.
All this time we are here, we have been engaged in the development of the state border. Our main objective is to prevent the invasion. But if this happens again in this region, then we must be prepared to stop the enemy at the state border to prevent it from sinking deep into our country.
As the country prepares for further Russian strikes targeting its energy systems, 40% of Kiev residents were left without water, and around 4.5 million Ukrainian consumers were temporarily disconnected from the power supply across the country.
And in a related matter, Iran officially acknowledged for the first time that it had provided Moscow with drones. However, Hossein Amir Abdullahian, the foreign minister of Iran, said that Russia had received a limited number of drones prior to the outbreak of the Ukrainian conflict. Amir Abdullahian has additionally refuted claims that Tehran is still providing Moscow with drones.
This fuss that has been started by Western countries that the Islamic Republic of Iran has provided Russia with missiles and drones to aid in the Ukraine war. The missile part is entirely false. The drone part is correct. We provided a limited number of drones to Russia many months before the Ukraine war. We agreed with the foreign minister of Ukraine for them to provide us with any evidence that Russia has been using Iranian drones in Ukraine. We had an agreement for a meeting with Ukraine 2 weeks ago to be held in a European nation. Our political delegation was sent to the country, but unfortunately in the final moments, the Ukrainian side did not show up. The reason was that the United States and some European nations, especially Germany, had told Ukraine, "You want to drink coffee with the Iranians in a European country, while we're trying to impose sanctions due to drones."
Hundreds of Pakistani Tehreek-Insaf supporters continued to demonstrate in various parts of the country on Saturday following an attack on former Prime Minister Mr. Imran Khan as the protesters marched through the streets in Rawalpindi. Police personnel tried to assert control over the situation by firing tear gas canisters into the crowds. Many of the protesters were demanding a full investigation after Khan was attacked by a gunman opening fire on his campaign convoy as he marched on the capital, Islamabad.
Our demand is to find out who did the attack on Imran Khan. An investigation should be done. For a long time we were planning for a long march and it was peaceful. The daily businesses were not affected. Where did you get the new law that took away the right to protest?
Three charity vessels holding almost 1,000 migrants were waiting in Italian waters for over a week for permission from the new rightist government in Rome to dock. A row escalated over who should take care of migrants rescued by the charity groups off the Italian coast, with Italy insisting that countries whose flag was flown by the boats should bear some of their responsibility, and Norway disagreeing.
From technical point of view, the operations will be carried out by the technicians when it arrives, and it will be allowed to remain in Italian territorial waters, only for the time necessary to allow us to see on board all the possible health emergencies of people for whom I promise Italy will take charge.
Thousands of people took to the streets in London at the call of the People's Assembly movement and with the support of trade unions to protest against the cost of living crisis. Demonstrators demand an election at a time when the Tories in power for 12 years are struggling in the polls against Labour opposition.
People are literally eating or heating. So people can't afford to pay their energy bills, they can't afford the food prices, they can't afford their mortgages, their rents. Things have to change and things have to change fast.
To a different topical news now, after North Korea fired a volley of missiles tests in recent days as a protest to the joint military maneuvers between the US and South Korea, the US Air Force deployed B-1B strategic bomber and F-35 jets on Saturday to participate in the Allied military drills, which South Korea called Vigilant Storm. And speaking of the US, let's go to the US midterm election. US President Joe Biden told voters in Pennsylvania that a Democratic loss in Tuesday's midterm elections would have decades of consequences, while Republican candidates for Congress predicted a sweeping victory. For his part, former President Mr. Barack Obama has warned about divisions fueling a dangerous climate in the US politics as he stumped for Democratic candidates 3 days ahead of midterm elections that will determine control of Congress.
It's good to be back. Democracy is literally on the ballot. This is a defining moment for the nation. And we all must speak with one voice regardless of our party.
Of demonizing political opponents, of saying crazy stuff. It creates a dangerous climate.
And when you have people who are in leadership positions who promote or ignore over-the-top rhetoric, and then when there's an attack like this, they make light of it, they joke about it, then more people are going to get hurt.
Now, for more international news, let's follow this news in brief with Sofian Kenturi.
Jordan Bardella, a 27-year-old member of the European Parliament, was chosen by a large margin to succeed Marine Le Pen as the leader of France's far-right Rassemblement National Party. Friday saw a number of large tornadoes rip through the northeastern Texas, damaging the region as well as neighboring Oklahoma. Roads were blocked by branches for drivers near Dangerfield. During his 3-day historic visit to Bahrain, Pope Francis on Saturday welcomed a group of young people at the country's Christian school. The Pope blessed the event in prayer while the students cheered and spoke in support for him. According to Spanish police, the largest amount of marijuana ever discovered in Spain or abroad was found on Saturday when police seized 32 tons of packaged marijuana with a street value of at least 64 million euros. At least 13 people died in an overnight fire at a nightclub in the Russian city of Kostroma on Saturday. Investigators said that the fire might have started after a man fired a flare gun indoors.
As Twitter's new owner, Elon Musk, restructures the business, there are serious worries that chaos will engulf the platform. As a source of trustworthy information just days before the US midterm election, Twitter started widespread layoffs on Friday, also making Musk and Twitter vulnerable to legal action were the speed and scope of the cuts. Fans of an old-fashioned model of bicycle called penny farthings gathered in a park in Prague on Saturday to show off their skills to onlookers. Dressed in historical costumes, cyclists rode in formation accompanied to music or took part in races, either competing to be the fastest or to go slow and keep their balance.
Today's race was fine. It was super. The sun is shining nicely, not raining finally. Unfortunately, it is still a little wet. It was slippery, but it is fine. And lots of people are here, so it was very entertaining.
All right, time for a reminder of our top stories. A bilateral agreement on the creation of an Algerian-Nigerian business council was signed on Saturday in Algiers following a meeting between Algerian foreign minister and his Nigerian counterpart. Many Palestinians are still waiting for the funeral of their loved ones as Zionists still detain dead bodies. In Egypt, the 27th UN's Global Climate Conference kicks off with many expectations to find solutions to the climatic disasters. Iran officially acknowledged for the first time that it had provided Moscow with drones. And with this, our news comes to a close. Thank you for watching. If you want more stories, do visit our social media platforms such as Instagram and Facebook, as well as Twitter and YouTube, or our official website. That's it for me. Bye-bye.